1995 Acura NSX Targa. This is the NA1. Now, 1995 was the model year, the first model year where they introduced the Targa top. And going from 1991 to 1996, these were the NA1 generation. They had the 3-liter engine and a 5-speed manual. 1997 and onward are the NA2 with the 3.2-liter and a 6-speed instead. Now, the 95 and onward are actually Targa only in the US, except for the Zanardi edition, and those are demanding a crazy premium on the used market now. And of course, there are also a small number of NA2 coupes. So this NA1 coupe is of course powered by the 3-liter V6 that's naturally aspirated, the C30A engine, making 270 horsepower, 210 pound-feet of torque. Comes in just under 3,150 pounds. It's actually about a 120 pound weight penalty over the coupe. We have double wishbone front and rear. Now keep in mind, the NSX was not originally designed to have an open top like this. So of course, when you take off the roof, you're going to reduce your chassis rigidity. That's the big downside with getting the Targa, but Honda tried to compensate for that by making some changes. Those changes include thicker side rocker panels, bulkheads, roof pillars, and the addition of new front and rear bulkhead and floor pan cross members. You also have a smaller front sway bar, stiffer front springs, softer rear springs, and firmer dampers to improve the ride comfort and tire wear while reducing oversteer. Now, this car is near stock. Only mods are going to be the Taitec exhaust and upgraded pads. Now, I'm cautiously optimistic because the Targa has always been considered not the true enthusiast driver's choice because of that reduced chassis rigidity and the increased weight. And in just about as close as you can get to a stock example, I'm curious to see how much things actually change. God, such iconic cars. I mean, the styling, even just getting into the interior here. The key, so simple, but so special. Tilt and telescoping to the wheel, as well as power seats, which is very surprising from this era. Of course, the F-16 inspired cockpit, tons of visibility. You can see both arches in front, beautifully placed the car, greenhouse effect, thin A-pillars, very, very special interior. This car only has 69,000 miles on it, and used market, I mean, these are going for something like $90,000. The owner, Jerry, got this for $88,000 a couple years ago. All right, manual unassisted rack, but it's not as heavy as the other NA1 NSXs I've driven because we have the stock wheels and we have these all-season tires. So compared to many of the modern examples that have wider wheels, wider tires, stickier compound, and also wider track width. Oh, the gearing though, I forgot how long the gearing is on these cars. Still in second. Still in second. 8,000 RPM red line. I just can't believe this car is 3 decades old. That is just nuts to me because, God, this is like really peak Honda. Everything here is so ahead of its time. When the car first came out, of course, it wasn't quite as appreciated as it is now. But this was the actual usable supercar to compete with Ferrari. Suspension in stock form, definitely soft, a bit underdamped too. Seeing a bit of excess motion over even just medium bumps, not even the large ones. But these inputs, such beautiful, consistent control weighting. They feel so modern. I mean, this manual transmission is still one of the absolute best. And the transmission isn't even right here. It's still a mid-engine car. How did they do that? So tight and mechanical. It's not quite as good as a Honda S2000, but it's really the next best thing. Ooh, big bump there that you can feel that cowl shake too. You can really feel the reduced chassis rigidity, especially over these bumps, but even when you're cornering. Let me first give you guys a pull. Getting popped out of VTEC with that short shift. clutch engagement point is a bit higher, probably getting worn down. That's why we had a bit more clutch slip from that first gear pull from a dig than I wanted. But man, these inputs are just phenomenal. Peak Honda right here. I mean, there's no learning curve. If you know how to heel toe, you hop in this car and every rev match is just so natural. The positioning, the ergonomics, they're not compromised, which is quite unique from this generation of vehicle. The gear shift falls right to hand, very close to the steering wheel. So easy to use, no ambiguity between gates as you go from gate to neutral to the next gate. As you heel toe, that throttle response is beautifully natural. Of course, cable actuated, not drive-by-wire, as we have with modern vehicles. And that steering, oh, the delicious steering of the NA1 NSX, because with that manual unassisted rack, you get so much dynamic change as you load up the front tires, as you brake. It gets nice and heavy. It tells you exactly what's happening at the front end. You get on the throttle, it'll lighten up a bit. You have so much more communication than any of these modern cars. And because we're still running those OEM wheels and tire width, it's not overly heavy and cumbersome as you start pushing it. You're not getting an arm workout just driving the car in the canyon. Brakes here, actually one of the limiting factors of the NA1 NSX. If I were to mod one, that would be one of the first things I do, in addition to suspension with some coilovers. With the pads here, you actually don't have bad pedal feel. You have a decent firmness, again, for a car from 1995, like, not bad at all. Now in terms of power, keep in mind, we're paying somewhat of a penalty, right? More than 100 pounds. And I actually don't think that the power to weight ratio is quite an issue. It's more just the gears are so long that if you do get this car, one of the other mods that I mean, I shouldn't say you should do because this is just so pricey, it's going to be hard to justify, but I think you'll get so much more driving enjoyment, is the JDM shorter gears and final drive ratio, because that alone allows you to enjoy this glorious manual transmission and of course accelerate even faster. It's one of my favorite mods for these cars that really modernize it and address one of the biggest issues. Helps you stay in VTEC more frequently as well, which is right around 5,000 or 5,500 in this car. Oh man, I wish Honda still made cars like these, because when I think of modern Honda, you know, the Civic Type R is the only spicy, exciting vehicle they have. The new Honda Prelude just dropped, and I mean, we all know how we feel about that. 200 horsepower eCVT hybrid car, just not what we were expecting. Let me give you another pull. Characterful little engine too. The way it just pulls and that sound. I love these things, man. But modern Honda, I guess, it just doesn't speak to me the same way. Like when I drive EK9 Civic Type Rs and DC2 Integras and S2000s, both AP1 and AP2 or NA1 NSXs, they just got everything so right. From the inputs to the chassis dynamics to not compromising on structural components. Like, let's make sure we have double wishbone, right? And I get it, with modern era, you have to worry about packaging and cost and, you know, all these other things that make it harder and harder to do that. But when you go to the 90s, truly the golden age of the Japanese sports car, Honda was on top. They were just completely killing it. Nowadays, I don't feel quite as emotionally drawn to Honda, and when you drive a car like this, I mean, these cars are so expensive for what they are. And people talk about, oh, well, the power and the performance and all these things for, you know, almost 100K is just it's not worth it. And I get it, but there's different stages to the driver experience, the driving enthusiast, I should say. And I think one of the final stages is focusing on the driver experience rather than outright performance and spec sheets. And Ah, man, the NA1 NSX, it just gets that so right. Again, the Targa is not going to be really the driver's choice. I will say that all the squeaks and rattles you heard were right up here, and I'm wearing the binaural mic so that hopefully you guys can you can understand what it actually sounds like in the car. You can feel the cowl shake over some of these bumps. You feel the juddering in the steering wheel, and you get G-forces while you're cornering. You can feel the chassis isn't quite as rigid. I hear some estimates of maybe 10 to 20% reduced rigidity versus the coupe, and which makes sense. This was an afterthought, right? Not like a Porsche Boxster, which was designed from the ground up to be a roadster. So then when you add the Cayman with the hardtop, there isn't much of a penalty with no roof versus having a roof. Now, between the T-top and the coupe is still definitely the driver's choice. You have the reduced weight and the added chassis rigidity. However, if you are going to be driving the car at, let's say, 5/10 and lower, then the T-top doesn't really have that much of a compromise. Even still, even as a T-top with the compromises, these cars are just such special experiences behind the wheel. And if you have the opportunity to drive one, I think you're going to love it. Big shout out to the owner, Jerry, for letting me review his NA1 NSX. And if you want your car reviewed, visit us on jubbalandcars.com. Fill out the form on the homepage. Much love, my friends, and I'll see you all in that next one.